Very excited to speak to our guest today here on Off the Podium. She is a two-time Olympian, an Olympic bronze medalist, a world champion, a two-time Commonwealth Games medalist, and somebody who freaking loves her sport. I just wanted to point that out there. It's so exciting to speak to our first ever javelin thrower on the show as well, Kelsey-Lee Barber, who is with us now on the show. First of all, Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here on Off the Podium.
Yeah, thank you so much. Excited to have a chat.
Have you got the t-shirts made yet of I freaking love this sport? Like, I really think there's a merchandise chain here that you can do, like an animated pitch with you with a javelin, sell it out there. I mean, it's got to sell itself right now. I'd buy one. Yeah.
I was going to say, there might be something in that. Should look into it.
Exactly. I think as soon as you have one of these quotes that is kind of like heard by the entire country, right? Like you've got to market that right now, like, and just put it out there. You could have like ifreakinlovethissport.com, and then people go to it and straight away they're learning how to get into javelin. Like, there you go. That's you get the kids involved. So just helping you out here a little bit at the beginning of the interview.
Yeah, of course. And I actually think in that moment you have so much going on. There's so much adrenaline. You're like brain's all a bit fuzzy. I actually completely forgot that's what my opening statement was in that post games interview. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch it now.
The best bit I think about it was that after the closing ceremony, when Channel 7 do their little sort of montage, which I love, I think it's always fantastic, but I think they even, if they didn't lead with it, it was involved in that. So while they're showing all these like highlights to like classical music and slow-mo of all the great moments of the games, they cut to you and I freaking love this sport. And it's like, oh, look at that. There you go. So you were even using the end of the Olympics montage.
I figure if I've made a montage, job done. That's what you want, because those things give you goosebumps most of the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Tick it off the list. Now, I as I said, you're our first ever javelin thrower that we've ever had on the show. We've had multiple people from different field events, and I'm always intrigued to kind of learn how it was javelin that you ended up choosing essentially to pursue. So sort of what led you to making your life out of throwing a large, is it stick or pole? What's the politically correct term I can use here?
Oh, I think it's closer to a stick, definitely.
Okay. All right, we'll go with stick then.
A point. Yeah, this is a funny one because I think over the years of explaining how I got into the sport and how I ended up where I am, a lot of it came down to, part of it was a good fit for me. The event chose me as much as I chose the event, because there's definitely a distinct point in my life where I competed at a national schools championship meet. I won it. And from that moment on, I just sort of felt like my destiny was laid out for me. I wanted to be a javelin thrower, and I wanted to go to the Olympics for javelin, and I wanted to compete in javelin at every major event and be the best at it in the world. So I just was as I say, in that moment, and especially reflecting on it as I've gotten older, just realized how much of a pull towards the event there was for me, and just how much of a good fit it was.
In terms of Olympics in general, I believe you'd sort of always aspired to go to the Olympics. So outside of athletics, had you been involved in many other sort of sports to pursue this Olympic dream? Could we have seen you at the Olympics in something else besides athletics?
I think it always started out with athletics. I was a very keen netballer early days, but no netball at the Olympic Games. So that one kind of got bumped a little bit to begin with. And then, it was athletics, and it was really just figuring out which of the events was going to be a good fit. I actually was a discus thrower to start off with, so I was always a little bit more inclined to the throws events, and I actually really loved discus. It was probably my first passion in the sport. But as I said, as I got a little bit older and as my body matured a little bit, there was just something so exhilarating about throwing the javelin, and I fell in love with it, and I still love it to this day.
Is there a point where you're starting athletics and you kind of realize I'm going to be maybe more of a field athlete than a track athlete, or were you always sort of designated towards the field events and running maybe wasn't something that was for you?
Definitely the second. I was always inclined to field events. Yeah, it was either like the throws, as I said, or it was long jump, triple jump, and then even occasionally high jump, but I wasn't especially good at that. I think the one track event that I loved and I tried to continue with it for a number of years was the 200 meters. But other than that, it was field all the way.
I notice nobody ever says pole vault because that's just where one of those ones where like, okay, you might be able to throw something, you might be able to jump something, you might be able to, kind of do that. But does anybody ever, when you're doing field events, go, hey, I'm going to try the pole vault? Because that is one of the weirdest events there is in sport, isn't there?
I actually think it's one of the coolest events. I must give them credit. And there were just some events which I wasn't given the opportunity to try at a young age. So it was hurdles, pole vault, and hammer that I've actually never even attempted because it just wasn't offered at my school carnivals at that point in time. And then it was only as I got to regional and state level events that you'd see those particular events being participated in, but I hadn't qualified to compete in them. So yeah, I think, again, as I got a bit older, those events also seemed harder to try for the first time. So I just stuck to the things that I knew well.
Now, I believe you were born in South Africa, moved to Australia, and if I'm not mistaken, you moved to Australia around about the time of the Sydney Olympics. So kind of was this, when you came to Australia, was that what spurred your passion for the Olympics? Had you sort of grown up in South Africa watching the Olympics, or was it literally you've come to Australia in the midst of our entire country being so obsessed with the Olympics that kind of just sparked this passion for the Games?
Yes, it was definitely the fact that I had never experienced an Olympics. I didn't really know what an Olympics was until we came to Australia that year. And as you say, it was just the hype of it. And I know that Sydney Olympics is iconic. It is generally one of the most highly spoken about Olympic Games. So there was just so much involved in it, and this idea that you could be a professional athlete and compete on this stage that was the Olympics really just blew up my world. It was just this thing I hadn't even considered was possible. And suddenly I'm watching people on TV competing in something that they loved. And I think the thing that I still love about watching sport nowadays is just the passion and the dedication that athletes show towards their events, and not just in athletics, but in all sports. So it captivated me. And I think from then on, it was like, cool, this is really something that I want to try and pursue.
Do you then write yourself sort of like a goal? I know Nicola McDermott sort of had written a future letter to herself, one day, dear future Olympian. Do you have anything along those lines of, hey, dear future Kelsey-Lee, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm going to be an Olympian.
I think it'd be really cool if I did. It'd be amazing to share those stories or pull out old letters and drawings and things, but I probably kept things quite internal through my youth. And every now and then when I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was, I want to go to the Olympics. But no, nothing written down, which is a shame because I think those are that's awesome memorabilia to hold on to and reflect on. So I'll probably encourage my children in the future to write down their goals, or at least in some way put it down on paper. I think that's a really wonderful thing. I certainly do it now, a bit more into my adulthood. I've always written down my goals for the seasons to come. And as I said, it's the best feeling when you get to reflect on that and say that you were able to achieve it.
So is this just also writing things down? Is this just something that we're learning with the Australian track and field team, that with Nicola and the diary? Is this, you now taking this on board that, hey, she got silver, I only got bronze, so maybe I need to write more in the diary, and that's, taking it a little bit more seriously heading towards Paris potentially?
Oh, I think a training diary is something I started when I sort of got into the world of athletics, and it sort of became part of being a professional athlete. And I've always been really diligent in forward planning, setting out goals, what I'm working towards, because that really solidifies why you do it day in and day out. And, we talk about having umbrella goals in what we want to achieve in the sport and what I want to achieve in this life of an athlete, but then you come down a few tiers and you have goals that you set out for each season, or even, as I said, each major championship. So it's for anyone out there, it doesn't have to be in sport, but it's so lovely to have something to work towards every day. And especially given this last year through COVID, that was especially important, just to remind yourself why you're doing it, but also to take time and reflect on, as I said, the bigger picture of why we continue in this sport overall.
The one thing I've always been interested about with javelin, sort of with all the throwing events, is the unique aspect that you've got more of a running aspect to it than, say, in the discus or the hammer, which is obviously starting from a stationary position. When it comes to sort of the training, and maybe when you decided, hey, I'm going to switch focus to javelin, how is that balance? Like, as a javelin athlete, how much are you focusing on the strength aspect of I can throw the javelin this far versus I've got to work up on that speed aspect to pick up some speed when it comes to throwing the javelin?
Yeah, and this is why I love javelin. This is part of what makes it so exciting to train for. Is it really encapsulates so many elements. It's we have very the delivery, and that has to all come together for the javelin to fly well. So the training part of it is just as exciting. We get to do running based activities, we get to do jumping based activities, and then we get to do the strength side of it in the gym, but then we get to practice the element of actually throwing, the art of throwing. And there's, as I said, there's that part of it alone, which stands out for me, and the subtleties of technical work. But then it's the overall athleticism of being a javelin thrower that I really love training for.
And is there a percentage you can put on it that the run is, say, 40%, the throw is 60%? I mean, kind of when it comes to, if you're throwing it, over 60 meters, does it all come down to just a perfect balance, or is there one that is more important than the other?
No, it has to be seamless from start to finish. And this is what I try when I talk about the throw. I always say that the throw starts from the very top of the runway the moment you get off the mark, because a lot of the throw comes back to those elements of power and speed, but there has to be like rhythm and finesse and involved with it as well. And that starts from that very first step, and then it has to roll through right to the point of release. So if you can tie all those elements together, that is when your throw tends to come through seamlessly.
And is it a sport where, I remember sort of, you don't really see it a lot now, but the likes of a Carl Lewis, those sort of people who could do the long jump and the sprinting. Can you recruit sprinters and teach them how to throw because they're fast? Can you recruit a discus thrower or a hammer thrower because they know how to throw? They just got to work on that. Or is it really an event that you need to be starting at a young age and you can't really pull people from another one to give it a try, if that makes sense?
I actually think, again, javelin's one of those ones that we're very unique in that we're not very body type specific, if that makes sense. So it's kind of cool. Like a javelin thrower, it's kind of all shapes and sizes. And funnily enough, a lot of really good javelin throwers have come from multi-events in the past. We've had some really good heptathletes be international medalists, if not at least competing at world champs and Olympic Games. And I know some of the men's javelin throwers as well had a background in decathlon. So I really feel like if you've got, as I said, like running or jumping based elements in your training, you could very easily come across, and they're going to help you be a better javelin thrower. But same, if you're more inclined to just the throwing events to start with, discus, or shot put or hammer, like you've got that throwing element and you clearly love the throws. So there's absolutely no reason why you can transfer that across either.
When it came to the focus, you've switched to javelin now. This is kind of your one event. You first represent Australia when you go to the Commonwealth Games in 2014. But what was sort of that period like when I've switched focus now to javelin to eventually getting that first Australia call up? I mean, was it a case of just working your way through the school system, the state system? I mean, sort of were you on the cusp of the Australian team before the 24 Commonwealth Games and making it finally, you're like, yes, here we go, I'm there? I mean, sort of what was that whole period like?
Yeah, so actually this is probably really great to sort of explain in terms of the number of years it took to make that first team, because that moment for me where I decided I was going to be a javelin thrower was in 2008. And then I finished school in 2010. Gee, my math, I'm having to go back here. But end of my schooling year was when I decided that was javelin was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to prioritize javelin in what I did. So I still went to uni and worked those years, but I really tried to focus my attention on javelin. But yeah, it took me another 4 years before I made a team. And I had a pretty significant injury in 2012 as well that caused me to step back and make a decision as to whether I was going to rehab it to try and have a go at making an Australian team, or whether I was going to rehab it just to continue on with sort of weekend activities. So that was quite a big moment in my life where, again, I was sort of had to make a decision on, was this what I wanted to do, and was I going to keep pursuing it to the highest level? And it was an absolute yes from me. So yeah, there was quite a number of years there where I had to just put in the work, and again, a lot of it was just about getting my body ready or more prepared to throw at the level that would require me to make a team.
And what is that moment like then, sort of when you get that eventual team, you've made the Commonwealth Games, you're going to be representing Australia? I mean, does it make through all that, everything you were just mentioning out there, worth it a little bit extra when you you qualified, you are representing Australia at a major international event?
Yeah, I find this really funny because I was expecting this really big kind of like shock hit you moment when I made that team, or when I first went into team camp, or when I entered the stadium, or when I stood at the top of the runway in round one of the competition. But I actually never had that moment. And I think a lot of it for me was I had prepared for so long to make that team and be part of it and throw my best at it, that I think I prepared myself well. I kind of believed that I was meant to be there and that I'd earned my spot in that team. So yeah, I never really had that like shock moment, which I don't know, not too like upset about. I know I've heard athletes in the past talk about having that moment. I think mine came for me more when I wore my Olympic blazer for the first time, because again, that was where my goal, my big goal, my heart had always lied, was making an Olympic team. And I always felt like the Commonwealth Games and a World Championships were always going to be really good stepping stones or progressions to helping me get to that level.
Which would have been a completely different story had you pursued netball, because I guess the Commonwealth Games alongside a netball world championship is the pinnacle of netball, whereas obviously for track and field, you'd rank Commonwealth Games like a third or a fourth kind of thing, sort of on the tier of global events. But and also it's kind of, it's your job. You've said at the end of school, like, I'm going to be a professional athlete. Yeah, I've made the Australian team. I mean, that's just like, oh yeah, I got that promotion from Jenkins in the office. I was expecting that, and here we go. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe that's a lot of my personality to some degree. I set myself these goals of like achieving these things, and when I do it, it's kind of just like, excellent, I've done that now. What's the next goal? I've sort of had to learn over the years to really take time to sit back and just sit with the fact that I've been able to achieve something that I set out to achieve, because I'm always very quick to move on to the next one, or what's the next thing ahead. I'm very hungry for excellence and the pursuit of excellence.
And I'm imagining in a sport like javelin, I mean, with any, track or field event, there's kind of that barrier that you want to get to. I mean, is javelin the 60 meters? Is that sort of getting to that throw of a 60 meters? And do you remember that first time that, boom, I've achieved it, I've cracked the 60 mark, and now this is going well? Very much so, yes. The 60-meter barrier is definitely the first one, and then I think the 65 is the second one. The third one I feel like is a little bit funny. I feel like it sits somewhere between like that 68 to 70 meter mark, because there are so few women that have hit that top end 60 meter range. But yeah, I very much remember the first time I threw over 60 meters, and I very much remember the time I threw 65 meters for the first time. Great. Which, I mean, like, this is the thing I love about javelin, is that I don't think people realize how far that is to throw a stick. Like, let's be honest, you are throwing a stick, but like, that is a bloody long way. I mean, we're obsessed with the 100 meters at the Olympics. I mean, that's more than half that distance. That's insane. I mean, like, it just must be such a proud moment to kind of crack that moment, then the 65, and just realize how freaking far that actually is. Yeah, how freaking far. And it's really, really cool when you get to see it side on in a stadium. I think this is what, again, this javelin is just so fun to watch from so many different angles, because as a thrower, I always love watching it from behind, because you get to see a little bit more of what the athletes are doing and how they put the energy into the javelin. And when you see it fly from behind,
it's a totally different picture. But when you see it fly from the side, as you say, it is so cool to then appreciate how far that distance actually is. So yeah, the amount of time it actually spends in the air is one of the best parts about this event, is that I get to deliver it, but then I get to watch it fly and I get to watch it land. So the whole process is actually a lot longer, and you get to enjoy it for a lot longer than I feel like some of the other events.
Well, that's true. I mean, any of the jumping events, you're experiencing the distance by landing. Even with hammer and discus, it's kind of got the same thing there. But like, you've got sort of that delivery and kind of everything, and you're with it the whole way. Which I can imagine, like the adrenaline aspect of it. You know, what everybody loves about the field events is the clapping. Let's get the crowd involved, all this sort of stuff. You're obviously known for your clutch throws, which we'll obviously talk a little bit about. So it's kind of getting that aspect, and you're watching it, and you're seeing it land, and it's just all that.
Yeah. Very much. And this is. Yeah. Oh, I love talking about javelin.
You freaking love this sport. Come on, we know this.
No, I think it's exactly that. Like we have that moment where at the top of the runway, you have to be so composed, but so free with your mind to allow your body just to throw it. But then if you're someone like me who enjoys the crowd atmosphere, or that little sting in your belly when you've got just that like jolt of nervous energy, like those are all elements that kind of bring the throw together that I really love about competing at the top level in this event. And then, as I said, like you have to put that throw together seamlessly without letting those external elements influence how you're going to deliver the throw, and then trusting yourself with all the work and all the training and your body to just deliver it. And at the end of the day, throw the stick.
Yeah, throw the stick. How fast is the javelin going? Like if you're throwing that thing at the peak at an Olympic final, like what's the speed?
There have been numbers thrown around, but I off the top of my head, I can't remember. I know that we're somewhere between, like running down the runway, our speed hits like 20 meters per second, maybe.
Right.
I don't even know. That's
to put it into context. If you threw the javelin at the same point the 100 meters run, would Usain Bolt get to 60 meters before that javelin did?
No, I think we'd be quicker.
Right. There you go. So use that. I'm quicker than Usain Bolt. Simple.
For 60 meters, yes.
Yeah,
Let's go with that.
Exactly. You can say that. I would beat Usain Bolt in 60 meters. Like, you don't have to go into the technicalities of that, but hey, you can use that as well. So just to kind of put that out there. Now,
just to pump up my confidence a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. I always think like people should use these, a little bit more and kind of go along with that. Commonwealth Games 2014, you get the bronze. Gold Coast, silver. So are we just calling this right now Birmingham, your gold medalist? Like, this is already a lock? Like, it kind of seems to be that progression, right? That we're moving up
I think that's
ranks.
the only way it can go, right? Like,
yeah. I like patterns.
My career with a complete step. Like, there's nothing else to say.
But what is it? You talk about that, kind of almost like this is just business as usual. I've made the team. I'm representing Australia. But when you sort of do leave your first international competition with a bronze medal, I mean, how do you kind of leave those games and feel like, is it a case of, wow, this is going pretty well, I've got that confidence, international competition behind you, which I'm sure is very different to competing on the national stage? I mean, kind of how did that all affect you moving forward?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of, there were pros and cons involved with it. I think having achieved that certainly showed that I was very capable, and I definitely held my own in that standard of competition. So as I said, given my nature, I was sort of like, cool, so it's only up from here. Like, it's a straight linear trajectory to the next championship, and I'm going to do better than that. So, yeah, I think it was great in terms of like coming back and feeling confident and wanting to keep improving. I think that was awesome. But a Commonwealth Games for me was a very different experience to my World Championships in 2015. Just the level of professionalism, the level of throwing that comes out of World Championships, the business-like temperament of those games is completely different. And that really was a whole new experience for me in 2015. And that's where I felt like I fell short a little bit. I guess I expected it to feel a lot closer or more similar to the experience I had at Commonwealth Games. That wasn't the case. So I definitely, 2015 was a big learning experience for me.
And how did that help then on the path to Rio? Did you kind of take more from that then in the qualification process, and did that help or sort of hinder where you thought you might be going into Rio?
I definitely thought that the World Championships experience was really helpful in the progression for the next 2 years. Actually, I just got a much better sense of what it was going to feel like to be in the mix and be amongst that. And as I said, I think for World still Olympics and a Commonwealth Games, because those are multi-event games. There's big village life. There's lots of experiences to be had outside of the stadium itself. But at a World Championships, it's literally track and field, and it's, you know, that World Championships crown is, I personally hold just as high as an Olympic gold medal in terms of what you're trying to achieve under the circumstances of those games. So yeah, I hold them on the same level. I think there's something in that. So yeah, the 2015 definitely gave me much needed experience and exposure to what to expect in future years.
I always love hearing about that aspect, sort of you mentioning that the village and multi-sport sort of tournaments, because you're right, like a world championship for any sport is just that sport. You know, I mean, maybe if you're a swimmer, it can kind of be considered because you've got diving, you've got artistic, so it's a little bit that way. But athletics, your track or your field rights. But like, it is, I guess, I imagine, experiencing a village, experiencing that. You're bumping shoulders with the swimmers, you're bumping with that sort of stuff. And we always like to find out about the Olympic sort of experiences when it comes to sort of, village life. But you mentioned the Commonwealth Games a bit more relaxed. I mean, did you find that sort of relaxed atmosphere now being 2 Olympics, 2 Commonwealth Games is sometimes more enjoyable? That it kind of helps you compete a little bit at a Commonwealth Games, that you're maybe not, I don't know, taking it, I don't want to say you're not taking it seriously, but you're not taking it as seriously as you would be at an Olympics, if that makes sense.
I do. I find it particularly hard in these multi-games scenarios because, yeah, I want to be there for the event, for my event, and very business-like. But there's so much to experience outside of that, and in a non-COVID year as well. Like, you get to be a part of other sports, watch other sports, cheer on other teammates. So there is so much to enjoy about that, but I've never really let myself experience that side of the games, or I haven't yet, because I've always gone in with such, again, a really like high goal for myself. And I know the best way for me to achieve that is to kind of stay within my own little bubble, stick to my routine as much as possible, make sure that I'm looking after my body, not doing too much outside of what I'd normally consider in my training week. And then it's the mental side of it and emotional side of it as well. Like, if you kind of experiencing or exposing yourself to all these different parts, that can be very draining. So yeah, I tend to kind of hide away a little bit, stick to myself, or Mike and I tend to just continue or try and keep as much as what would be considered normal in those games. So I don't regret it. I think I've had the success I have had because I have stuck to that plan. But yeah, I can't walk away with the stories that other athletes have about those Olympic or village experiences, because I haven't necessarily had them myself.
Do you at least allow yourself a 5-minute moment at a closing ceremony when, say, Kylie Minogue's performing? Okay, right, this is worth it, right? Kylie Minogue's there. I can just 5 minutes. I can relax right now and party.
Yeah. So I mean, after my event, sure, I'm all about it, but I didn't get to do that at this Olympic Games. 2016 Rio, I was so disappointed by my result that I probably shut myself off a little bit to enjoying that. So that came with its own kind of, yeah, I just wasn't in the mood, kind of to say. But from my 2014 and 2018 Com Games experiences, I had a fantastic time with my teammates after I competed. So yeah, I have those memories to hold on to for sure.
Want to talk about Rio. You touched on before about sort of not really having those, big moments when you make the Australian team, but the Olympic blazer moment. I mean, we always love to hear those moments of qualifying for an Olympics and everything along those lines. I mean, was it the moment when you got the blazer when you realized, shit, I'm an Olympian, this is my childhood dream? Or was it when you'd qualified? I mean, kind of that whole, I guess, experience around qualifying through to getting the blazer. I mean, that must have been a pretty amazing experience.
Definitely. And there were probably two moments for me where I think it really sort of sunk in that I was either in the process of or had achieved what I had set out to do, 8 years previously. So it was the night that we were awarded our official boarding passes to say that we've been selected on the team at our annual athletics awards nights after nationals. So that was the first time that I felt like, wow, this is happening, or this has happened. I've achieved this goal, or I'm about to. And then the second time was when we had our opening ceremony. We were just the small track and field team in our Florida training camp at that point in time. So we weren't even in the village yet, but we all got to dress up in our Olympic uniforms, and we had kind of our own opening ceremony. And that was really special for me. It is such an honor to put that blazer on. I feel like that's one of the proudest moments for me, wearing that. And even to this day, every time I put it on, it's something really special. So yeah, that for me stands out as a pretty epic moment.
Because I, as somebody who loves to collect pointless crap, and then I spend money, like I'm literally sitting here right now, my team Australia, it's modern pentathlon. I don't quite have javelin, unfortunately, but hey,
I'll send one to you.
Thank you. Yes. But like, I could imagine those moments when you do get, and it's not just the blazer, like you're getting your uniform that you're going to be competing in, and I believe you still get the swimwear, don't you? Like with the Olympic ring, everything. You're not a swimmer, but you've got to train in the pool, right? So like you're getting basically a suitcase filled of Australian Olympic swag, which I mean, you never want to get rid of that, right? Like that's like in a special place that you're going to hang on to the day you die, surely.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sentimental about this. I really feel like each athlete that has qualified and represents the country with that uniform it's something pretty special to them. And yeah, I don't ever want to get rid of it. I know it just most of the time just sits in the suitcase, but yeah, I definitely I got my World Championships singlet framed actually, and I plan on doing the same with my Olympic singlet this year, because those competition singlets have so many stories attached to them, and they're definitely something I personally want to have around to remind myself of the journey that took to get there.
And is it the same too with like the little competition bibs, like with your name on it, that you kind of got like a little, I don't know, a folder or something kind of with every single one of those somewhere as well?
Yeah, early days I probably like kept all my competition bibs. I think I've got a stack of them still at my parents' place, but it's probably just the major championship ones that I hold on to nowadays.
You mentioned obviously you left Rio sort of not too happy in terms of with how you go. I mean, what did you set yourself a target for? Was it making a final, winning a medal? And I mean, how hampered were you sort of with injury kind of going into Rio?
So again, this is funny reflecting back on where I was, how naive I was in my world of javelin. But yeah, I'd set out to Rio to be at least in the fight or contention for a medal. It was definitely not meant to be that year. I suffered a stress fracture in my back. It was diagnosed in March, just in 2016. Wow. So a lot of my preparation for the Olympics that year was just about returning to the sport. And I just did not have enough training behind me to put myself in a position to throw far enough to make the final, let alone contend a medal in the final. So I don't think I ever stopped believing that it was possible. And this is a lesson I guess I've learned over the years, is that there's only so much that, hoping things will come together works out. I think maybe once or twice I got lucky in my career when things hadn't lined up to say, okay, I can still achieve this, but I definitely don't want to go into a championship again just hoping that things will come together. I really want to have the backing of my training and that element behind me without just this idea of like, I'll just hope that it'll come together. And that's a lot of what 2016 ended up being for me. I mentally just like kept that goal alive and kept that dream alive by just hoping that it would happen.
But in terms of sort of reflecting on it now, can you sort of look back and think, well, I had this pretty nasty injury, 4 months out from an Olympics, and I'm still able to go and compete. I mean, hindsight's 2020, of course, but I mean that's pretty amazing to be able to recover from that enough to still be able to compete in Olympic Games a couple of months later.
Yes, and I've definitely, as I've matured and, as I said, had time to reflect on that, I think I've probably just been able to appreciate what I've put my body through and appreciate the recovery elements and the dedication it took to get to that final. So, yeah, absolutely. I think there was a lot. Maybe I didn't learn a lot from the competition itself that year, but I certainly learned a lot in terms of what I was able to achieve in terms of that commitment to chasing down goals, definitely. And as I said, like the fire and the desire to achieve that goal never burnt out even while I was injured. It almost just made me more dedicated to doing my rehab well and ticking off every other box that I could possibly do to help me work towards that. So, and that still stands true today. I think if anything, it just solidified the fact that those are the things you need to do in order to achieve big things.
It must have worked because obviously between Rio and then Tokyo, things start to go quite well. 10th at the World Champs in 2017, silver as we mentioned at the Com Games, and then a little improvement in Doha, little gold medal that you did kind of walk away from the World Champs. I mean, you touched on before about sort of holding up that World Championship medal up there with anything and the Olympics. I mean, do you remember sort of going into that event similar to what it was, what we saw in Tokyo, your last throw that you get the gold medal with? I mean, moments like that, how can you put all of that experience into words, from the going into it, this is what I want to achieve, to literally walking out with the gold and doing what you no doubt have dreamt about for most of your javelin career?
This is a really great question because I was actually just talking to Mike about it last week. He asked me something similar and I said, no, my experiences in Doha compared to Tokyo are actually completely different. And I was a completely different athlete at both of those championships. And I think the big one for me was Doha. I'd had a really awesome season leading into that games. I had hit PB after PB. I had so much confidence and self-belief in what I was capable of achieving. I had a shoulder niggle that, I kind of just, it was there and it was going to be there. So the confidence I had around everything else in my training just meant that kind of just was part of the package that year. And on the day, would just find a way to kind of push the pain aside because I knew that I was capable of achieving something really awesome at that games. So that was the version I had in 2019. But in 2020 or 2021, sorry, I had this other version of me where I had no distance kind of backing me into this Olympics. I had my experience from World Champs, and I think that helped to a degree because I sort of believed in the fact that I could stand up to the challenge and could produce something really special when it mattered most. So I certainly took that element and that experience with me. But in terms of how to trust my body, how to push pain aside and have all the confidence in the world in my technical model, I had none of those elements available to me. What I did have and what I think really shone brightly at Tokyo was the fact that I was so set on achieving this goal, and it only ever comes around once every what should be 4 years. I remembered how devastated I was in Rio and not getting anywhere close to it. I sort of didn't want to let this opportunity pass me by. And I was so mentally ready for that competition. That is how I was able to perform the way I did. I was so present. I was so alive in what I wanted to achieve on that day. And I had this burning fire of this goal that I just wanted to reach full stretch and have a go at. And that was so different to Doha for me. So it's really cool to be able to talk about and reflect on these experiences, because I guess from an outsider looking in, it was kind of like, oh, a medal and a medal, but how I achieved those medals were actually really, really different.
Just quickly on that, while you're mentioning that burning fire and everything that you've taken to Tokyo, on that final throw then in qualifying, is that literally like you've put all that into a bottle and you've drunk it and gone, fuck it, this is everything I need to do, and I'm going to throw the shit out of this javelin, and it clearly works?
I got caught in a really weird space in that qualifying round, because I just I'd had a small niggle 6 weeks out, which meant that I couldn't load my foot very much. So I hadn't had much throwing, hadn't had much load, and I hadn't had competition. So I was kind of going in, and again, very mentally ready for it. The most calm and collected I'd felt going into qualifying, knew what I had to do, knew what to expect. But I got caught in this weird space of just making things look really like pretty. Just kind of like, okay, we're just going to throw the javelin. I had forgotten about the reason, like why I was there. Like, you need this to qualify for the final. So after 2 pretty shit throws, kind of sitting in like 29th, which is worse than when I'd finished in Rio, I was like, not today. This is not happening today. I just got in, I just sat down, kind of like held my head between my hands, and I was like, I'm not going out like this. It was just so, in that moment, just like, there's your path again. You know what you need to do. Sort your shit out. Get it done. And it was exactly that. It was just that, like, I don't know, what do you call it? Like stubbornness that I wasn't going out. I was going to be in that final. And it was just about, like, doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to fly pretty, but you have to hit it hard, and you have to hit it with everything you've got, because I would be so disappointed in myself if I walked away from that not making the final, but also regretting that I hadn't just like given it a crack. Like, if I just hadn't have left it all out there, I would have been more disappointed in that element than if I'd had a go and it fell short. And I feel like, okay, well, that was literally all I could have done today. But yeah, I'm really happy that I was able to flick that switch, because I definitely carried that over into the final 2 days later, and I sort of started where I left off in the qualifying. And that's, yeah, I guess that's where I want to be. I want to be free enough to just like take those big leaps, not just in major championships, but in every competition. And I guess I'm still working towards that to some degree. I think I hit that more often this year than I have in previous years, but it's still something I'm working on.
There's another t-shirt idea in there for you as well. Sort your shit out, get it done. Just freaking love this sport. Sort your shit out, get it done.
Relevant.
Yeah, you have so many people buying those.
It just comes down to that. Sometimes you just put everything else aside. You know what you're there to do, so just go and get it done.
Exactly. And also, too, in qualifying, not only yourself for the final, but with Mackenzie and Catherine making it. I mean, I remember watching that, and that you had Dave Colbert and Bruce McAvaney trying to go through history books to see if Australia had ever qualified 3 athletes for a field final. I mean, when you've got freaking Bruce McAvaney scrambling the record books, you know you've achieved something
one of the
special.
Greats.
He knows that shit off the top of his head. He doesn't need to do it. I mean, that must be pretty special, though, to have that notion that you've got basically a quarter of the final are Australians. I mean, pretty good chance for him. It could be a sweep. Could be the complete the podium there.
I remember people who'd watched that session that night saying they'd never seen so much green and gold on the track and field before, because I know we had a few of our distance runners competing that night as well. So it was like gold here, gold there, gold running around. And I was like, boom, we just made history. 3 women in the final, making the top 8. Like, it's awesome. How awesome to be part of that, though. And so cool seeing other javelin throwers from other coaches and other parts of Australia come together and do that. You
mentioned sort of taking that feeling from, that final throw into the final. Obviously, it's a couple of days in between the qualifying to the final. How do you maintain that sort of, like, I guess, momentum or kind of feeling? Is it just limited distractions as you possibly can do, stick to your routine? I mean, do you have any sort of things that kind of you would do to really stay in that zone in between the qualifying and the final?
Yes, the most important thing I've learned over the years, and we've really stuck to our guns in the past few major championships to make sure we do this really well and really thorough, is debriefing that qualifying session, making sure that we talk about whatever we need to talk about so that we can leave it, we can park it, pull out the one or two things that we know are going to help or be good for the final. And then it's just like, right, literally wipe your hands of it. That's done. And now we go into that same preparation that we would for any other javelin competition, and we work towards that. So yeah, it's a very similar routine. As I said, I do become a bit of a hermit in those days because I know what I need. I know what my body needs, and I know what I need mentally in order to be prepared to throw again. And the 2 days was longer than I've ever experienced before, and it probably felt like two of the longest days. But again, there is some comfort in having those routines set up because it's familiar, and that's what helps me feel most settled going into competition. So as I said, the main part is just that debrief and pulling out the few things that help us plan to be my best in the final.
I always love learning about the psychological aspect of any sport from any guest we've got on the show. And how is that going into an Olympics as a reigning world champion, that you've kind of got a target on your head that you maybe had never achieved before? And are there psychological things that you can kind of do to try and psych out your other opponents? Like, yeah, I'm the fucking world champion, you better watch out for me. Or is it a case of, shit, I don't want this on my head, I'm going to kind of go back? I mean, kind of how can you use it to your advantage, or is it more of a disadvantage?
I think I knew from the moment that I won my world title that was always a possibility, but I really tried to embrace it. I almost like having that little bit of fear element around me. And I think, hopefully, I think I've kind of put a name about myself to say that don't rule me out until my final throw. And I really love that. I really like that I can stand up in that round 6 and have people wondering, can she still do something? Is it possible? So yeah, I want to maintain that. I think it's an awesome card to play. And yeah, as I said, I really tried to embrace what having a world title meant going into competitions, because I worked hard for that, and why not?
Yeah.
On my two things, like, yeah, own it. Absolutely own it.
We talked to Matt Denny about sort of other psychological aspects. He talked a little bit about some mind games he liked to play with the competitors. A few little things he might say in passing as he walked past another one of his opponents. Is that something you've ever tried to do at all?
That sounds like a very Matt Denny thing to do. Classic Matty. No, maybe I'm less of a verbal psych. I've probably become very intense. You can almost probably see the intensity radiating off my body, and I think it comes across in a little bit in my facial expressions. I think there were a few comments after watching me in Tokyo about my resting bitch face and my game face. If you're ever doubting what I might be thinking in a final, just always look for the eyes and the mouth. You'll probably figure it out pretty quickly.
Which one is Kelsey-Lee? Which one is she? Okay. Oh, there she is. There you go.
Yeah.
No, there it is. There's two. And just,
the one that's probably like staring into your soul right now. She's like coming at you.
Which also too, given the unique, I mean, you mentioned sort of you love that crowd aspect. Obviously, we know the limited crowds and no crowds and everything, but obviously you're coached by your husband. So therefore, the one person you probably want to be there is there, but he's also helping you to that goal of a medal. I mean, kind of, was it extra unique there in Tokyo, given that like the family element you would want to have afterwards isn't there, and kind of Mike's really it, and you can, everything that kind of came around that moment when you did get the medal?
Yeah, I've been super lucky for both world champs and Olympic that Mike's been there to celebrate with me and gets to share in the moment as it happens. And I get to share that moment with him. It's super special. And I think given everything that we go through to achieve those, like he has such a greater understanding and so much more depth in knowing what it takes to achieve those moments. So to be able to share them with him, he gets to celebrate as much as I do. And so he should. He's a big part of why I'm able to do what I do and the success I've had. So this year was especially important, I guess, having him there because, as you said, like, no crowds, no spectators, and no other family members. So I was one of the lucky ones that got to really share the Olympic experience with him.
Obviously, you kind of mentioned through there, that fear of she can do something on her final throw. You're obviously very well known for that sort of final throw aspect. But in the final itself, so your fourth throw would have been good enough for a bronze, but that final throw that ends up, 5 centimeters away from a silver. But it looked pretty darn good from everyone's. I mean, I think everybody there was like, yeah, that's better than a bronze. But like, what you'd mentioned that sort of moment, watching it, but that judging moment, that whole period where they've got to get this, you're like, oh, here we go. Like, you know you got a medal, but at that point you're like, fuck, like what different color? What's that moment like?
Yeah, I think for me with this time round, I obviously knew it had fallen short of the gold medal, but I was like, have I done it again? Have I done it again? There was like just this like excitement as much as anything about like, yes, I just threw my best on my sixth. Like, could I just like scare everyone a little bit and be like, oh, she did it again? But I mean, at that point in time, I had secured the bronze, so it was a bonus if I managed to sneak that silver medal and to come within, is it 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters? Like, yes, it sounds like a lot on paper. And I think when you read the numbers, you're like, oh, that distance was clear. But when you look at it on a tape measure, it is nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So I always forget that about javelin. Like, you sometimes see results that are like 2-3 centimeters, sometimes maybe like 30 centimeters. And you're like, that's heaps. Not really. Like, it's so tiny.
I'm just looking for our video viewers. It's that much. So just, I'm not trying to rub it in your face or anything, but I'm just saying for people who really kind of want to see that, that's not much at all, right? That's ridiculously small. But I mean, it is the famous
part of
saying.
The event, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's sport of inches, sport of centimeters, millimeters, everything along those lines. But I mean, is it also a level of freedom, like you mentioned? You've got an Olympic medal at that point. It's not like a qualification where you're like, I've got to make this or I'm not making the final. Or in Doha, like, I'm fourth, I need to pull something out of my bag here to do it. So like, is it more of a freedom level, like, oh my God, I'm coming away with an Olympic medal, fuck it, just throw everything on the line literally to go out there and get a different color?
Yeah, yes and no. I had never been in a position where I was actually kind of on a podium in my final round before, so I never experienced that. But I suppose I still wasn't quite satisfied with the bronze at that point in time. It was more just the fact that it was like, you've got one more opportunity, like have a go, have a crack. Like, don't waste it being satisfied with the bronze. Like, you literally get one more throw. Why not have a crack at trying to walk away with this gold medal here? As I said, this opportunity doesn't come around often enough to waste it. So I was still very focused and very, very intense in that sixth round on that absolute goal of the gold medal. And I'm really glad that I was able to maintain that level of focus, because as it still got me an extra, I think, 50 centimeters in that final throw. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way I competed in Tokyo. It's one of my best throws series I've ever had, and can't complain with a bronze medal at an Olympic Games.
Well, I was going to say with that, I mean, at the very beginning of this interview, we mentioned the famous line you say to Channel 7 afterwards. But I mean, that's the great thing about those moments, though, is that's just showing just how emotional and how overwhelmed and everything, because you've dreamed of the Olympics your entire life. You've won a medal, which is something that even less people achieve in their lives. I mean, has it been something that you've been able to, even still right now, several months after the event, even just reflect and go, holy crap, like, and sort of pinch yourself more? I mean, does it hit you at any point that you are an Olympic medalist?
I've had a few moments, actually, and I think I was pretty hard on myself after winning, actually, winning the bronze, because I still had moments where I guess I still felt like I fell short on what I was able to achieve this year. Like my distances weren't great. I really struggled with some technical issues, so I wasn't at my best. And I still had moments where I was like, "Damn, I missed that opportunity again to throw my best in Olympic Games." And then it would totally seesaw, and I'd feel like, "Wow, given the circumstances of this year, I'm really, really super happy and super proud of what I was able to achieve." So it was a roller coaster for like a month after the games, just kind of like fighting, toing and froing a little bit. And I think once the dust settled a bit on the Olympics and the season and everything that happened, I've definitely had time to appreciate and reflect on this year. And yeah, less about this like judgmental moment where I was like, you didn't do it, and more about like, yeah, cool, you freaking won an Olympic medal. Like, you'll have that forever.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something just that you're always from now on when you enter a room, it's going to be like, Kelsey-Lee Barber, Olympic medalist, world champion. You know, like it's kind of, it never leaves you. I have to ask, I always ask this to all our guests who have won medals, what do you do with the medal? Like, have you got a place for it yet? Is it something that you kind of working out? I mean, you're not wearing it now, but I mean, do you generally take it off like an hour a day to breathe, or are you still just wearing it all the time?
So yeah, I do actually have my medals on display in my house.
Right.
As I said, there's something I'm really proud of. And if nothing else, they actually motivate me in my training, especially on the days that are maybe a little bit harder, I'm feeling a little bit sore, I'm not feeling super motivated. They are definitely a reminder as to one of the reasons why I love this sport and what I'm working towards. So yeah, I like to have them out. They're also, people like to see them, and I like sharing them. Like they're beautiful medals. They're really, really cool to hold. So yeah, when people ask, I'm more than happy to share that.
I just want to point out that, look, I've never remotely gotten close to an Olympics ever. Like, I mean, I'm still holding out hope. I mean, Andrew Hoy was 62, so like I've still got time. But I, rather than spending a large portion of my life being athletically gifted, I actually just spent $20 and went to Wish and got myself a gold. So if you want a gold, just to show it off, happy to hook you up.
Hey, you've got the legit ribbon there, so
right. They put some effort. They put some effort into it on Wish for once. It wasn't one of these ones where you end up getting just some sort of crappy thing instead. But I'm actually a fun story. I think I'm about a 12-time Olympic gold medalist with my various other collections. So if you want to see my Nagano '98 gold medal for winning the biathlon, I'm happy to share that with you too.
Woohoo! Yes, get them out. Gifted. You can take the photos.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on top of everything though, with that, like the thing that fascinates me with javelin in Australia is that you were only our second ever medalist in the history of the Olympics, not even women, men and women. Louise back in Atlanta obviously got silver, and the world championship gold. You're our first ever world champion in the sport of javelin. I mean, do those things kind of mean a lot to you? And then do you also hope that you can take that and sort of use it towards the future generation that say by Brisbane, that when you're winning gold in Brisbane, you've got a silver medalist and a bronze medalist behind you. We are sweeping the podium in a decade's time in Brisbane.
It does actually mean a lot to me. And again, I think in those moments where I'm really hard and really like judgmental on my performances as an athlete, to sit back and say like, I was the 9th Australian ever to win a world championship. I'm the 2nd Australian ever to win a javelin medal at an Olympics. Those are really high achievements. And I suppose they're the ones that I maybe hold on to and kind of recognize a little bit, because, I said at the start of the interview, I set my standards exceptionally high, and they haven't always meant that, they've actually meant things have made myself harder for myself at times, because I do set those standards so high. But I think it means that I'm very quick to judge myself harshly, or always feel like I could do something better. But it also means that I walked into this sport, and I still hope to, in the next few years, keep striving to achieve these goals. But I want to walk away as one of the best ever. And I feel there's passion in that. There's something exciting about challenging myself to that extent. And I've still got a few more years to continue doing that. And I find that really exciting. And I look forward to that. That's what gets me up every day, is to keep pushing those barriers. And yeah, love to walk away from the sport feeling as though like I can say I was one of the best javelin throwers ever.
I really don't think we've had a guest on this show that has been as passionate about their sport as you. I'm trying to think back, and like, I love this. Like, I love it when anybody's passionate about their sport. But the fact that, again, I mean, we started this off with you freaking love this sport. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, this is just
it's true.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember as a boy maybe picking up a stick and throwing it, going, that was kind of fun, but maybe I'm just going to go back inside and play with my cars. I don't know. But like, you freaking love throwing sticks. I love this.
I live for this event. Like, there are moments just even talking about it. Like, I get teary thinking about it. I get goosebumps talking about it. I'm really excited that I've still got a number of years left to continue doing this, because as I said, there is nothing else I'd want to do right now. I still love the element of traveling and being on the road as part of the sport and the circuit, and most of all, I love the championship meets. I love the world championships and I love the Olympics. As I said, there's just a sense of professional, expert, being around other athletes who are trying to achieve the same thing. That gets me very excited each time I'm there.
Well, we're going to close out with a series of exciting, fun questions in just a moment. Before I do, just a couple of quick things. The one question that I'm sure, has been asked so many times, and you're sick of answering it, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway, because it would be my job to do it. Paris 2024, I'm assuming you love this sport so much, you've basically already got your tickets booked, you've already got your Eiffel Tower, restaurant seats reserved and everything for 2024, right?
I'm there. I am there. As long as my body's healthy, I am there.
And I mean, mentioning our chat with Matt, like Matt very much was like, I'm going to be a 5-time Olympian and he's going to end his career in Brisbane. How is that kind of, with that caveat there that, at some point very soon, in basically 10 years, we're going to have a home Olympics. Can that be something that is achievable for yourself, do you think? Like, is it something that if you just keep the body in shape and kind of keep pushing forward, that really would be a great goal to kind of end an Olympic career at a home Olympics?
To be totally honest, there are women who are now still competing 39, 40, 41, I think maybe even 42. Like, it's physically very capable of doing it if you can keep your body healthy. I think the big one, and for female athletes, it's I want to start a family eventually, and that's going to play into how long my career goes for. I'm not to say that I'll just sort of say, cool, I'm done, this is it, I don't want to be a javelin thrower anymore. I think I'll probably be more inclined to say, like, cool, I'd really like to start a family, and if I can, I'll come back to throwing and see where I go from there. There's kind of a lot of things to consider before we start talking beyond 2024, but the next 3 years are a definite for me. If I don't end up it's probably unlikely I'll be in Brisbane competing, but I'd like to be there in some capacity, whether it's still part of athletics as a coach or a support coach or a manager or something. I still want to be part of this sport for many years to come.
I was just going to quickly say, no disrespect to our American listeners, but you can skip LA, get the gold in Paris, start the family, kind of have some years off, and then, maybe 2028, 2029, start working.
Rolling back in.
Yeah. Peak to 2032, right?
I can't tell you how exciting it would be to compete on home soil at an Olympic Games. That would be one of the goals in life.
It's that journey too, that the Olympic goal started by arriving in Australia, seeing Sydney.
I know, what a story.
It bookends itself.
It really does.
Yeah, it really, really does. And I mean, on that too, sort of, I mentioned Birmingham, but obviously the Commonwealth Games are a week or two after the World Championships in Oregon. I mean, how do you balance that? Is it something that you go, okay, well, I can do this and do that? Do you take precedence over the World Championships over Com Games, or are you still kind of working that out?
No, next year's, World Championships, obviously got a title to defend, but I very much want to get that gold at Com Games as well. So 2 very high priority events. We know what the schedule is going to look like, so we make it work.
It makes it work. As I said, bronze in Glasgow, silver in the Gold Coast, gold in Birmingham. It makes sense. It's kind of that build up. And one thing that this comes from our co-host Jared, who couldn't be with us on the show today. I remember during our Tokyo coverage when, I'll admit, I may have accidentally forgotten all of our javelin throwers in the final. I was trying to remember who each of you were, so I will hold my hand up and apologise for that. But when we were working that out, Jared's first thing was like, which is the one who is in that ad throwing against her brother? So it is you, of course. Now, when I look this ad up and sort of, watch it again and everything, the one thing I love when you type it into Google is Greg really Kelsey-Lee's brother? So can you clarify this? Is Greg,
wondering this question. No, I do not have a brother named Greg.
Oh, ruined.
I know. But it was so much fun, and I had so much fun with how that ad played out and everything involved with it. Like, awesome to be a part of, and I had so much fun with it.
Do you get shit tons of free beef?
Yes, that was just an ad specifically for like the Olympic campaign, because they're a sponsor of the team. So
right.
I was the very lucky athlete to be asked to be part of that.
They're not just backing up a couple of cows on your front lawn, like going, "Well done for the beef and extra one for your bronze in Tokyo."
I was away for too many months to enjoy it anyway.
I did kind of want to come into this going, Greg, but no, that would be cliche now, wouldn't it? We couldn't do that. Big cliche, silly things on this show.
Why not ride the wave? It was great fun. I enjoyed it. Did
any of your teammates chant that in the crowd, like when you're going there for your last row? Greg.
No, it didn't come up in the team. There's always just like an Aussie. That always gets a good run. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm telling you now, when I'm in that crowd at the Gabba in 2032,
I can hear you chanting.
I'm going to be the one. Like, Greg. As I said, we close off with a series of kind of fun, silly, random questions. Now, these are based on a questionnaire that Team Canada gave their athletes ahead of Rio and Pyeongchang. And I'm always excited when I can use a questionnaire filled out by somebody from the same sport, and I found somebody who, by looking into this, you've competed against multiple times, beaten her a couple of Commonwealth Games, Liz Gleedle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I know who this is.
Yeah, now are you friends with Liz? Like, do you sort of, hang out with her afterwards, throw some sticks together with some beers, or is she just kind of like, nah, she's that Canadian enemy I've got to beat every
No, actually, Liz has been one of the girls that has been on the tour with me since the very beginning. So we have quite a good friendship, and she's always the one to kind of look out for
Great.
when we meet up every year. So, yeah,
Right.
This is cool.
I will compare some of her answers. Now, as I always say, there's a optional drawing element because this was a handwritten questionnaire. So if you feel the urge, we've had a couple of bobsledders do this before. So you could be the first summer athlete to do this. So straight away, Liz here has drawn a picture of herself. She's drawn what looks like it's almost like a cave painting of sort of somebody with an arrow.
Oh, yep.
And she's written, "That's the best I got, haha." So, hey, that kind of works. All right, your favorite ever Olympic moment is?
That Channel 7 interview. I freaking love this sport.
Yes. Oh, good answer. I love it. Wow. I feel like I need to open this interview with that. Right. We'll play the clip. Liz's answer was Simon Whitfield winning his gold. That was Sydney. I remember that. That was the first ever triathlon. Remember that one. If you could choose any Olympic host city, where would it be?
Oh, I'd love to go back to London.
Yeah.
I'm sad I missed that Olympics. I think that would be wonderful.
She's answered Rome, so you're both in the European mindset there.
Yep.
In your spare time, what do you most like to do?
Cooking.
Hey, you're with Liz. She likes to cook as well. So there you go. Do you have a special dish that you sort of go to?
I always enjoy more Thai flavored dishes. That's probably like lean towards those sorts of elements.
Nice.
So,
okay.
Yeah, anything with a bit of spice in it.
You know whose house to go to if we want some good Thai food all of a sudden. The weirdest instruction, and this is going to be extra funny, I feel, given that your coach is your husband, the weirdest instruction a coach has ever given you?
Oh no. There's probably too many of them.
All of them are weird.
Oh no. The weirdest instruction. I feel like it's going to have something to do with like the way I move my feet or something. Nothing comes to mind though.
Wow. Okay.
You know what he has said to me? It's just just fucking throw the thing.
Yeah, oh, that's what I've been doing wrong. Ah, shit. There we
That's
go.
what I'm supposed to be doing.
It's like, that reminds me of like when I used to watch football with my grandmother, and you'd be watching it, and she'd go, just kick it. And I'm like, I think that's what they're doing, Nan. But hey, we'll pass on the message. We'll try and get there.
That's why I'm here. That's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Exactly. Your favorite workout is?
Oh, throwing, definitely.
Throwing.
Outside of throwing, it'd have to be like my big gym days with an Olympic lift involved in it.
Great. Well, what is an Olympic lift? Like, to me, an Olympic lift is lifting something that's like 5 kilos, as you can tell by these guns, but, you know.
Oh, I'm talking like a snatch movement or a heavy back squat or something like that.
Is it, I've asked this a few times, but like when you're in the Olympic Village and you're in the gym, do you sometimes play like guess the athlete, like guess what sport they're from? So like
all the time.
Yeah. And are there some that you just look at and you have like, I have no fucking clue what that person does?
Yeah. Oh, it comes up occasionally, and then sometimes you can, from 50 meters away, pick the athlete based off their physique, or sometimes how they walk as well. It's quite fun.
Guess the sport. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a fun game. I think that really people should play. If you could have lunch with any one person, who would it be?
It'd probably have to be like a chef. So I'd either say like Jamie Oliver or Donna Hay.
Yes. But would you like, because they'd be in the kitchen cooking, so like you couldn't really
I'm not cooking.
Right. Well, but like you can't really talk to them though until they sit down, right? Like, and then.
Oh no, like I would be in amongst it, like learning.
Oh, right, you'd be in the kitchen with them, like,
it, and then we can both sit down and enjoy the meal.
Hey, that's clever. So not only are you then getting good food, you get good conversation. So I like this.
Teaching me about flavors and textures and
yeah, exactly. Your favorite sandwich is?
I do enjoy a Reuben.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yes.
That doesn't get answered much, but no, I'm on board with that. I like it.
Yep.
Now, the next drawing one, if you want to, draw a picture of a Canadian animal. We can make that Australian animal. And Liz has drawn an albino bear in a snowstorm. So she's left it
left it blank.
Yeah, an albino beaver. I was going to say, because isn't an albino bear a polar bear? But it's actually beaver. So I just apparently can't read. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I think I'd always go back to flying.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to experience that.
That would be pretty cool. That's a good one.
It suits my event as well, doesn't it? Like watching the javelin fly, I'd like to have a sense of how that feels. Yeah,
you could just like literally recreate. What's it like? You talk to your javelin. So what's this like? All right, I'm going to experience it. You know,
I'm going to experience it.
On that, when we had Eleanor Patterson on, and we talked like, do you talk to the bar? Like, I want to jump over the bar. Do you ever like talk to your javelin and be like, come on, you little shit,
you are not
go through the air?
To ask me this, and I had never even considered that this was a thing. But no, I do not talk to my javelins.
Oh, come on, you're missing out. Like, I'm sure you can make friends with it. Like, yeah, give it a name. You could call it Ben. Call it Ben for Paris.
Just give it a little nudge to say, like, come on, let's get this one.
Let's do it. Yeah, exactly. That works that way. The best candy in the world is.
Oh no. I am a fan of like sour worms.
Okay.
Yeah, like any of those like jelly lollies, they have to be pretty high on the list.
Yep, pretty high up there. I'm just seeing here that Liz is saying blue, live wire, weirdly plastic, but delicious. Don't know what that is.
Can't say I know what that is.
Yeah, unsure of that one. As a kid, your favourite sports team was?
I definitely followed like the Brumbies in rugby union. Still do today. So, and they're probably like the team I remember following from like an early age.
And do you kind of feel weird when it comes to a World Cup? Like, are you just purely Wallabies, or do you kind of have to go, Springboks? Like...
Aussie all the way. No.
All right. Okay. All right. Just
green and gold through and through.
Clarifying there. Correct answer. All right. Your favorite sports movie is?
Does Cool Runnings count?
Of course it counts. It's the standard. It should be the standard answer. Like, I mean, you know. Absolutely. 100%. Is there, and I always ask this when there's not an obvious one that I can think of, is there a javelin movie that you know of, or are there like documentaries maybe on some javelins? Or
Oh,
on
they're
Netflix, or?
definitely there are docos, and probably docos based around definitely docos based around the Olympics, but maybe not javelin specific, but
Okay.
yeah.
We'll make it happen. The Kelsey-Lee Barber story coming soon to Stan in 2025, or, like Channel 7. Sorry, I'm on board.
After 32, you're going to have the whole story.
Oh,
After
yeah,
32.
exactly. What would that be, like 3-time gold medalist, 4-time Olympic, 10-time world champion, kind of works that way. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Somewhere in Switzerland.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That was cool. Just like the scenery, like the neutrality, like the chocolates, the cheese.
All of those things. I think it's a combination of like the air, the chocolate, the landscape. Yeah, it's one of my favorite places to visit and compete in every year.
And what's the javelin scene like in Switzerland? Is there, a strong javelin history in Switzerland that you know of?
Not specifically javelin, but the Swiss love athletics, and they are some of the best places to compete just because the crowd gets so involved and you feel so loved, even though they might not know who you are specifically. It's kind of just like get in and amongst it and appreciate athletics and appreciate the athleticism of these athletes and what they're doing. Like it's awesome. Like
there you go.
Zurich Diamond League meet is one of my favorites all time.
Hello to all our Swiss listeners listening to the show today. I love this question. When you were little, what was one thing you always thought?
I don't even know how to answer this question.
It's deep. I'll tell you. So Liz says, my dad played for the Vancouver Canucks. Didn't realize it was a real team. Well, I still doubt that there, Liz. No offense to our Canucks listeners, but come on. But yeah.
No, I would need some time to think about that one.
Okay. Give some homework for you.
Yeah.
You can answer that before Paris.
That's a deep question.
I know, right?
It's like going back. Far out.
The best answer I think we ever got to that was I'm hungry, because I just were always hungry as a kid. So
maybe mine would have been like, oh, how did I get that scratch? Where'd that bruise come from? Did I hurt myself again? Like
the last one, and this is one that you've always either got or I feel you don't. That is, your favorite joke to tell is?
No, I've got nothing there.
No joke. All right. Okay, that's nothing.
I'm the worst for remembering those things.
Well, Lizzie's inappropriate one-liners at the dinner table. So, is that common when you're around Liz? She's always like dropping inappropriate things. Yeah. Like, wow.
That's classic. I enjoy listening to them, and I'll very much be that person like laugh crying in the corner. But I'm not one to retell them.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Before we let you go, anywhere that people right now listening or watching can follow you, social media. You've got a great website if you want to plug that as well. I mean, feel free to plug whatever you like.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Over the last couple of months, I've worked pretty hard to keep everything nice and organized. So everything's at Kelsey-Lee Barber now. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and my new website, which only went live a couple of weeks ago. It's all Kelsey-Lee Barber, which is awesome. I'm me as myself, and you get to follow my journey.
It's great. I tell you now, like, it's rare actually. I find that people just have a website now. It's kind of very social media driven. But when it's all there, it makes my job easier. I don't have to rely on Wikipedia. But it also, I mean, it's very well put together. It's great. And I thank your website people for putting it together.
Yeah, my team, Pat and managers at Jam did an awesome job putting that together. And yeah, if you haven't had a look yet, certainly check it out.
Is the beef ad on here? I don't see the beef ad. Where's the beef ad? Come on.
Social media. Put it on my social media. If you haven't yet seen that, it is a good laugh. And it's on my Instagram to have a look through there.
Well, Kelsey, it's been a pleasure to chat with you today to learn more about your journey, learn that Greg's sadly not your brother, and learn that this t-shirt business is going to be booming. But we'll be cheering you on for both Oregon and, of course, Birmingham for 2022, then 2024, 2028, 2032. Bugger it, 2036, you'll be there still too. But we really do very much appreciate your time on Off the Podium with us today.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun. I've really enjoyed everything.